When the Astor family moved into Cliveden, and just after their moving into Cliveden, they purchased White Place Farm, which was quite smaller than about the size that it is now, I suppose. The majority of the land being east of Sutton Road. And of course, the Astors loved horses, and so they did all the ploughing and cultivating of the farm with horsepower. And then they purchased more land to the east of Sutton Road, including Sutton Farm and Jordan's, Lightlands, and even more Hall, north and south, and the ground around there. So they needed something a little bit more than horsepower to cultivate, and this is where the story of the tractor comes in. Sometime just after the First World War, around 1924, 25 I would say, the Astors decided that they needed to buy in some agricultural machinery, and they thought, well, best place to bring it in from is America. So McCormick Deering was a big manufacturer in international McCormick Deering, and so they bought in a International 1020 tractor, and with it they bought a Ransom's two-furrow plough to go behind the tractor. That was not the only thing they brought in. They brought in a combine, not a combine, but a binder harvester, and that was a McCormick Deering, and also a thrashing machine or a thrashing mill, which the tractor could power. So those were items that they brought in. The tractor, which had a driver who was an ex-plowman, but gave up the horses for his new tractor, and he could plow in one day the same amount of ground that 6 teams of horses, 6 plows with horsepower could pick up. So that was the International 1020. It came with a very, very high air intake, the reason being that in the American West at that time, the Dust Bowl, and to keep the dust out of the air intake, the pipe was quite high up in the air. That was actually cut to about half size, because the air still went through an oil-based filter and into the engine. The exhaust was a stub, which actually came out of the side of the engine, and you can see it's marked with an X just below. The X is just below the stub exhaust. So that is the International 1020 tractor. Then in 1938, 2 more tractors were added to the list on the farm. One was the Allis-Chalmers B, which replaced with a couple of low-loaded trailers, was used to run between the various farms and fields with material to be fed to the cattle or whatever. It was a general, and it was on rubber tires, of course. And the driver that was engaged for that was a chap by the name of Freddie Dowd. And Freddie lived with his mother and father. His father also worked on the farm as well. And then there was the International tractor, which was the TD6. And the driver for that was a chap called Fred Osborne. And I forgot to tell you, the driver of the 1020, until he retired, was George Parker, who lived at Woodbrook Farm. There was a cottage at Woodbrook Farm which he lived in, he and his wife. So there you are. That is the two tractors that we had, and the 1020, by the way, last time I saw it in use, was towing a grass mower behind it, but it was used to cut marrow stem kale, which was then picked up by the cowman and loaded into a low-loaded trailer and taken out to the barn or the fields, wherever they wanted it, to feed it to the milking cows. So there we are. That's the story of the mechanization of White Place Farm.